Hello BookTube, this is part 7 of my 2022 library tour. Today I'll be focusing on the books on the top shelf of my headboard bookcase, the bookcase right here. This bookcase and, bookshelf and the one below it, I'll actually be pulling books off of them and then putting them back, whereas I've normally just taken the books off of the shelves that I have them on and show them on here. Largely because I can also clean those shelves. Although I don't think my headboard bookcase really needs all that much cleaning for some reason. But anyway, let's get on with the books. First of all is The Complete Works of Shakespeare, edited by David Bevington. I had this book, I got this book for a class on Shakespeare that I had as an undergraduate, and we read a number of plays and I think all of the sonnets. And yeah, it's a big, massive Shakespeare Anthology that I really don't come back to all that often. Shakespeare honestly isn't one of my favorite poets or playwrights for that matter. I mean, he's got a lot of good work. Some of his best work is among the best plays there ever have been, but I really much prefer 20th century drama. Tennessee Williams, Lorraine Hansberry, Edward Albee, that. So anyway, put him back. Next up is the Carla Trilogy, or in this case, Smiley vs. Carla by John le Carré. This is an omnibus that includes Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, The Honorable Schoolboy, and Smiley's People. I picked this up a year or so, well, more like 2-3 years ago, because in 2011 or 2012 I watched the film adaptation of Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy and loved it, and I wanted to read the actual novel, so I checked out from the library. I never quite got around to finishing it, and then I bought a not very good edition from Golden's that I decided I wanted to get a different edition, so I eventually settled on this anthology or omnibus edition, and yeah, really need to get around to reading these though. Next, in keeping with spy fiction, is a James Bond omnibus. These are 5 complete novels by Ian Fleming. These include Diamonds Are Forever, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Casino Royale, and Live and Let Die, and I have read all of them. I know it's rather rare in these book tours, unless you're Steve Donahue, to have read all of the books, but I've read everything in this anthology, or omnibus. So I first encountered James Bond, like most people do, through the movies. TNT or TBS would every few months air all of the Bond movies, or up through, I think, Dalton. I think at the time, since the Brosnan films were the ones that were current, I don't think TNT or TBS had the rights to them. I could be wrong about that, but I would watch them and really enjoyed watching them. And that got me wanting to read the books. So I eventually got 4 Barnes & Noble editions of Ian Fleming's Bond novels. Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, You Only Live Twice, and The Spy Who Loved Me, which is a really weird Bond novel. Also known as Ian Fleming Tries to Write a Romance Novel. Anyway. And then 2 omnibuses, one that included From Russia with Love, Dr. No, and Goldfinger, which form somewhat of a trilogy. Bond is recovering from what happened in From Russia with Love at the beginning of Dr. No, and Bond is returning back to London from killing Dr. No at the beginning of Goldfinger, so it's a bit of a trilogy. And then the other one is the Spectre trilogy that includes Thunderball, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and You Only Live Twice, or the Blofeld trilogy. Anyway, but I had those, I read them, loved them, had a number of other Bond novels by the continuation authors, the later 3 by John Gardner, Flowers, Never Send Flowers, Seafire, and Cold, and the first 2, Raymond Benson, 0-10, and The Facts of Death. And then I got rid of them, probably about 20 years ago or so. And I didn't read any Bond until I just randomly looked to see if my local library had any Bond and had these. I probably had watched some Connery Bond on TCM. And when I kind of got a yen to read Bond again, so I looked and they had this anthology. Not this exact one, obviously, but they had the same book. And I'm like, oh, really kind of enjoyed it. And I wanted it in my collection, so about 6 years or so ago, I ordered this copy. And I've had it ever since, and I've read quite a few of the Bond novels here and there as the yen takes me, or desire takes me. Of course, the Bond novels are, particularly by Ian Fleming, are racist and sexist and homophobic. It's there. And oftentimes, given that Bond is reactionary and racist and sexist and misogynistic, that it is hard to root for him. And very often I do find myself more interested in the villains and how Fleming has to other the villain in some way, to sort of disfigure the villain in some way, to try to further make them less sympathetic or more monstrous or something. It's kind of interesting, but yeah. The Bond novels can be, there's a thrill to it. Fleming can write a thrilling novel, but there is the racism, sexism, and homophobia, and political reaction, even for the time. So, if you ever do have a desire to read Ian Fleming's Bond novels, be aware of that. The Gardner continuations that I've read don't really have that, and the Benson ones don't. But I haven't really read much of the other continuation novels as far as Bond is concerned. Next up are 2 gay anthologies. First up is the Columbia Anthology of Gay Literature, edited by Byrne R.S. Phone. I've had this for years, and I've dipped in and out of it, and I quite like what I've read of it. So yeah. And I have an anthology of gay plays. This is Forbidden Acts, Pioneering Gay and Lesbian Plays of the 20th Century, edited by Ben Hodges. This collection, or this anthology, includes The God of Vengeance, The Captive, The Children's Hour, Oscar Wilde, The Immoralist, The Killing of Sister George, The Boys in the Band, Bend As Is, and Love, Valor, Compassion. And I'm sad to say I haven't really looked at this anthology all that much since I bought it about 15 years ago at the San Francisco State University bookstore. Not the used one, the main one, the class one. So maybe this June I will finally get around to reading them. Although I have watched Bent. I've actually seen a performance of Bent, which was quite good. And of course, I really want to check out the Boys in the Band adaptation that's on Netflix. So, right, but I do need to get to that one. And now we get to the reason why I'm going to be titling this part of the library tour mostly Agatha, because it's Agatha Christie time. First of all, we have five complete Miss Marple novels in this omnibus edition. Most of the Agatha Christie I have are in omnibus editions. So this one has The Mirror Cracked, The Caribbean Mystery, Nemesis, What Mrs. McGillicuddy Saw, or 450 from Paddington, which I really prefer that title, and The Body in the Library. Next is starring Miss Marple, and this has 3 books in it. A Murder is Announced, The Body in the Library, and Murder with Mirrors. And then I have 5 complete Hercule Poirot novels. Murder on the Orient Express, 13 at Dinner, The ABC Murders, Cards on the Table, and Death on the Nile. Let me actually move Poirot over here. This is 5 complete novels of murder and detection. It includes 10 Little Indians, or and then there were none, or then there were none. Peril at Inn House, The Murder at Hazelmoor, Easy to Kill, and Evil Under the Sun. Love this cover. Next is Miss Marple Meets Murder, The Mirror Cracked, A Pocket Full of Rye, at Bertram's Hotel, and The Moving Finger. And then we have 5 classic murder mysteries, including The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, The Secret Adversary, The Boomerang Clue, The Moving Finger, and Death Comes as the End. And then we have Agatha Christie's Detectives, 5 complete novels. The Murder at the Vicarage, Dead Man's Folly, Sad Cypress, Toward Zero, and NRM. And finally, for Agatha Christie, we have Murderers Abroad, 5 complete novels. They Came to Baghdad, Murder in Mesopotamia, The Mystery of the Blue Train, Passenger to Frankfurt, and So Many Steps to Death. I'm going to just hold this one up. So I first encountered Agatha Christie on A&E, the American cable channel, when it was actually halfway good, or mostly good, in the 90s. A&E had every Monday night the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes series, the David Suchet the Poirot series starring David Suchet, the earlier seasons of that, when it was mostly the short stories that were being adapted, and then the Joan Hickson-led Miss Marple series. And I would watch them, and I loved them. And I eventually picked up from Barnes & Noble a number of Agatha Christie's novels and short story collections. At the time, they were mostly published in, like, 2 publishers had them, HarperCollins and Berkeley. The HarperCollins Agatha Christie novels and short story collections were in a sort of a pastel palette with cutesy illustrations or stylized illustrations, and the Berkeleys were just a simple white cover with the title, author name, or text, and the particular detective in a sort of a foil raised embossing or something, which I quite liked. But so I had them for a number of years, and then got rid of them probably 20-ish years ago or so, maybe a little bit more. because at the time I sort of fell out with detective fiction. And then I would occasionally re-watch the more recent Miss Marple adaptation, occasionally the David Suchet Poirot series. And eventually one day I was walking around my local library, saw a copy of Death on the Nile, and picked it up, read it, loved it, read some more of Agatha Christie's novels in some of these omnibus editions. So 5 novels of murder and detection, 5 classic murder mystery, Agatha Christie's detectives, starring Miss Marple and Miss Marple Meets Murder. I think were the 4 that the library had. And I decided I really wanted these editions. Although part of me would like to have those editions I had when I was younger, but these will work. So I've gradually accumulated them from Alibris, from various sellers on Alibris. But yeah, I'm quite happy. I might pick up, because I think I have 2 more in my wish list, so I might actually eventually pick them up. Although, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to put them. Anyway, to wrap up part 7 of my library tour, I have one more book, and that is Legends of the World, edited by Richard Cavendish. This is a Barnes & Noble edition that I've had for ages. I think probably since I was 10, 11 years old. And I haven't read it in forever, but I still have it. It's basically an anthology of various world legends that include... also has some illustrations. So has like legends from India, Tibet, Mongolia, China, Japan, Egypt, Mesopotamia, some Jewish legends and Islamic legends, Greek and Roman legends, German, Celtic, some stuff on Alexander the Great, so on and so forth. So yeah, I haven't read this in forever. I really need to revisit it or do something with it, but anyway. So that concludes part 7 of my 2022 library tour. I will be back tomorrow with part 8, where we will finish off the headboard bookcase with the second shelf, which is going to necessitate some frustration on my part, because there's a little woodwork thing here that kind of makes picking up the books a bit difficult, because a lot of the books are kind of stuck, so I'm going to have to do some acrobatics with the books to get them out and put them back. But anyway, it's going to be fun, because there's a lot of books. It's a very assorted group of books. So, in your booktube, until tomorrow, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.